Hi there, it's Jonny Miller back once again from Point Blank Online Music School to show you some cool stuff with Ableton Live 8 and some sounds, loops and samples from clickproduce.com. Today we're going to get crunk. We're going to use Hip Hop Genius by Prime Loops. And this is a really cool little selection of beats, one-shots and construction kits. Now if you've not used a construction kit before, let me explain what a construction kit is. A construction kit essentially is the component parts of a full song. So for instance, if I go to the full beats, and traditionally in hip hop, a demo or something that an MC could rhyme over is known as a beat. And let's just click on this one. So this is called Still Standing, 88 beats per minute. It contains, in this case, in this WAV file here, contains the full song, the full beat. So we've got all the piano, the synth, the harp, all the effects and the drums. So the only thing we haven't got here is an MC. Now, if you like this, and obviously there's a few different beats to choose from there, you can go into the construction kits and actually look at the component parts for that song. So I've got all the different ingredients that made up that single beat here as loops. All the drums, the piano, and all the synths. Now I'm going to take this synth here, which is the main chords of the beat, and I'm going to use a function known as slice to MIDI to cut this loop up and do some interesting things with it and actually create an original piece of music from these component parts. First thing I'm going to do is load this detuned synth into an audio track and have a look at it. So essentially I've got the same thing twice there. I've got 4 chords that just repeat over the space of 4 bars. I'm going to just halve this loop because I don't need all of that. I don't need the repeat. I just want the first 4 chords. And I'm just going to right click and crop sample. And this is just to make what I'm about to do next a little bit more manageable. I'm also going to place some warp markers at the beginning of each chord. Now you don't necessarily have to do this, but when you slice up a loop and do what I'm about to do, it's useful to have these warp markers here. Now I'm going to right click again and select Slice to New MIDI Track. And we have this little dialog box here that pops up, just asking me whether I want to create 1 slice per transient. In this case, I'm going to select Warp Marker. So for every warp marker that we have in this clip, we're going to end up with 1 slice. And Live is going to create for me a drum rack that contains multiple instances of Simpler. Simpler being Ableton Live's single sample player. Each one of those 4 Simpler devices will contain each chord within this original clip. So I'm going to OK that. And now I can actually erase the audio, the first audio clip which contains my 4 chords. I can get rid of that. I don't need that anymore because what I've got is this new track that contains a drum rack. This drum rack is essentially housing 4 Simpler devices. Each Simpler device containing each slice of the loop, my original loop. So each chord, basically. I can just preview them there just by playing the little play icon on the rack itself. The other thing that Ableton gives us when we slice to MIDI is a MIDI clip that contains the original context of that loop, with each slice playing back to us in its original form. So if I just play that clip, and that just sounds exactly the same as my original loop. Now the fun comes in when you start messing around with things here and start messing around with the playback order, the rhythm of the notes. So I'm just going to start doing that. I'm going to put the click track on for a second, just so I can gauge where each beat of the bar is while I do this editing. And I'm just going to start by changing the note length of all these chords. So I'm going to select all, which is Command A, and I'm just going to use the sizing tool just to bring the size of all these slices down a bit. Now I'm going to use the Alt key to copy and create copies of each note. And what we now have is a slightly more interesting pattern, but I'm going to go further than that. I'm going to start moving the notes around as well. Let's move some of these notes off beat and some of them out a little bit, like so. Whoops, there we go. And I can just move them around until I'm happy with when they play it, and also the order of the notes. So I'm going to take slice 2 and use my arrow keys just to move it up to where slice 4 is. Slice 3, I'm going to move that down to slice 1. And all of a sudden I've got a completely new melody. It's made up of the original chords, but we're just doing something different. So there, I've changed the order of the notes. I've changed the rhythm of the playback of those notes too. And it's pretty endless what you can do here to come up with your own little riff and your own little melody. Now, because all the construction kit parts are all still here, I'm just going to go in and just take some of these other sounds and see what we have. This is nice, this little space. Let's add that in there too. Now, I'm not going to cut that up, I'm just going to leave that to play. And maybe I'll just shorten the loop length on this. And lastly, let's add a beat. And let's slice to MIDI this again. Let's do the same thing. Let's trim it down to 1 bar, crop sample. And this time I'm going to slice to MIDI from the transients, which are the little markers that Ableton sees when there's an audio peak within a clip. Just to be quick. Slice to MIDI. I've got a load more notes this time. Got all my individual drum beats laid out for me. And I'm just going to change the tempo as well. Let's go from 88, which is hip hop tempo. Let's go up to 140 and make some dubstep. So I need to just rearrange this beat now, because at the moment the rhythm's not quite right. So that's starting to sound a little bit more like dubstep. Let's try this rhythm. That's better. So I'm going to go into the space sound and just transpose it down by -12. Let's get this playing a bit deeper. Just play around with the positioning of the loop, the length of it. Now this sound here, this second space hit, I kind of like it, but I think I just want one of them to play within these 2 bars here. So I'm going to just add some warp markers in and just move that out the way. It's one of the nice things about working with live. So you can really rearrange what is playing within a loop. Let's add some effects to this main synth. Let's add some filtering. My track is starting to kind of come to life now. Okay, you can learn more techniques like this with us at pointblankonline.net, and I'll see you back here next week to show you some more cool stuff with Ableton Live 8. Okay, peace.